Ground control to Major Tom.
Bandeliga o la bu. Good morning. In 100 years' time, they will look down their noses at us because we allowed free, unfettered, lovemaking sex, procreation. It is a human activity which is certain to be controlled and taxed at some point in the future. We may not live to see it ourselves, but I feel certain, I'm sure you'll agree, that our grandchildren will. So let's discuss it for the first time now, here on Talk Radio between 2 and 3 this afternoon. How will we collect the sex tax? That's the first... No, the first question I'd like your reaction to is, what are your thoughts on the idea of this human activity, which is, to many, and as sacred as one's personal belief about God? How would you feel about this activity being taxed and being controlled? I'm sure you would have some reservations about your own behaviour being controlled and calibrated, but I am sure you will join with me in recognising that since so many of the problems of the human condition are bound up in this one simple activity, so simple it's the only thing that we share with every single other living thing on Earth, that the time has come for us to begin to think about controlling it. So, your reaction. Free call 0500 10 53 89 to the idea of a sex tax. And then let's move on. Let's get practical. Let's start to work out together exactly how this thing will work. How will it be collected? It'll raise a lot of revenue. It will help us exercise a degree of control over the population explosion, for example. What other problems does the simple act of sex deliver? Overpopulation, psychological problems, emotional disorders, crime, deadly diseases, eyesight disorders, repetitive strain injury, you name it. Free call 0500 10 53 89. And then there's the business of sex education and all the complications and confusions and anxieties that can engender. No, we need a sex tax, and we need to control the whole business of who has children and how many. And it seems to me that the best way to do this is either to tax sex in the same way as we tax so many other human activities, or to license it. So, questions. Your reaction to the idea of a sex tax first. Your ideas on how we will collect the sex tax. It would be far easier if sex were licensed in the same way as most other human activities are licensed. We need to, all of us, get together as a nation, as a species, and decide just when is an ideal time for a couple to have children, and when, how many children they should have, and when they've had enough. And free call 0500 10 53 89. And since it's a small planet, we're all entitled to our views about how other people should start and keep their families. But that's birth control. What we're really talking about today is the taxing of people's sexual behaviour, and think of the benefits that it will bring. An enormous amount of revenue. At a conservative estimate, my team believe that you could drop income tax by as much as 10 pence in the pound across all bands if we taxed sex. Tremendous amount of revenue. A tremendous number of hospitals and schools could be built if we taxed this single piece of behaviour. It will also help us exercise a degree of control. People would be required to know what they were doing and why they were doing it. But this is my bottom line on this one. Have a think about this, because I'm convinced it's true, and I'll tell you a quick story to illustrate why I'm certain that this is true. Years ago, I was involved in a new nightclub enterprise in a town called Brighton. And in order to get people into the door for the first couple of weeks, we decided not to make a charge on the door. Nobody came. Nobody came. A couple of people put their heads around the door, had a look, saw that it was empty, and went away again. We worked out what it was. When something is absolutely free, people put very little effort into enjoying it. So we charged a tenner on the door. You didn't get much for your tenner. It was a lousy disco and a very small and nondescript cabaret, but people packed the place out. The queue went round the block. Not only that, having paid their tenner, people stayed. People made an effort to enjoy themselves. They joined in, they danced hard, they laughed hard, they sang hard, because they'd paid to get in. And I do believe, I seriously believe, that if we view our lovemaking as an act of purchase as well as an act of love, it will encourage each and every one of us to pay attention to some of the small but important details in the process that, quite frankly, even in the most recent and loving relationships, can often go by the board. Free call 0500 10 53 89 is the telephone number. The sex tax. Your reaction? And how will we collect it? I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There is a good argument for listening.
Interactive station. Recall 0500 1053 89 now.
Before we rush to the phones, there's still time for you to get involved with Talk Radio's Wireless Wedding. But you'll need to get hold of an entry form in the next few days. Remember, we're marrying a couple live on air during the wonderful hour on Friday the 10th of July, and it could be you. We'll set you up with everything you need, including a wedding ceremony, reception and bridal suite at Amberley Castle, Britain's most romantic hotel, and a 2-week honeymoon at the luxurious Breezes Hotel in the Bahamas from Thompson Faraway Shores and Super Clubs. Burkatex Brides are supplying the bridal wear. There's morning dress from Mossbros, luggage from Samsonite, and even a top-of-the-range Sharp ViewCam digital video recorder to capture every detail of the occasion. For an entry form, send a stamped addressed envelope marked 213. The sex tax. How are we going to collect it? Paul calls from Northampton. You're on Talk Radio, Paul.
Good afternoon.
Sir.
Nonsense, I think, is probably the first thing I should say about that. I can't see it happening, Tom.
It will. It's certain.
What do you base this on?
An overview of history.
Really?
Yes.
And that's how you see the future?
Yeah, I'm certain of it.
And so how does this, in your mind then, have you got any ideas how this is going to work?
Yes, some clear ideas, but I thought we'd share our creative skills this afternoon. Do you have any?
Right. I certainly have creative skills.
Do you?
But I think a tax on sex is a sort of wee bit daft, really.
No, wee bit daft. Come on, we can be cleverer than that. If you are a creative person, let's try to hone up your objection. Do you find it intrusive?
What, having a tax on sex?
Yes.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, well, why didn't you say so then?
Oh, I'm telling you now.
No, I told you. And you agreed with me.
I said I think you're talking nonsense.
Yeah, that doesn't lead you anywhere, does it? I can't say, well, it's not nonsense. Everything's nonsense, man. What isn't nonsense? Name me one thing that isn't nonsense. Go ahead.
That isn't nonsense?
Yeah, name me one thing that isn't nonsense.
That isn't nonsense.
Exactly my point, you see.
Well, if you give me time, I suppose I could...
I'm not going to give you time.
I know you're not.
This is a radio programme, not a waiting room.
I think this idea of having a tax on sex is very silly. It's a very silly thing to come up and discuss, but there you go. I suppose I'm silly enough to phone, so that makes me part of this.
Well, I'm not silly enough to think that you're going to have anything more interesting to say than what you've already said, so clear off. Free call 0500 1053 89. It will happen, and it should happen. There's a very sound moral argument for imposing a tax on sexual behaviour. Tracy calls from Bedfordshire. You're on Talk Radio, Tracy. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Tommy, listen, the tax inspector, sex inspector, comes round to your house. How much do you actually tell him? How much of your business do you actually have to tell him?
Well, I mean, are you self-employed?
No.
No. Is your partner self-employed?
No.
Ah, well, we need to get advice on this from the self-employed, because when they fill in their tax affairs, we rely on them to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's affairs as well, isn't it? I mean, that's as well. That'll have to be taxed.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would mean that there would be penalties in law for not declaring your full sexual activity.
That's right. Well, it might do everyone a bit of good, I reckon.
Are you in favour of people having affairs?
No.
Then in that case, then you're on my side on this one.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Most definitely.
All right.
Now, carry on. Let everybody...
Now, I've calculated that, on average, most couples make love 2.8 times per week.
Oh.
That's the national average.
Right.
Where do you stand with that one?
Well, I'm above average.
Glad to hear it. Good for the Inland Revenue. There are 8 million partners who are active.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we charged £5, okay, per act, that would deliver over £100 million a week.
Wow.
£100 million a week. £5,000 million a year.
Which would hopefully be reinvested into the practices that sex have, the illnesses that sex has brought about.
Oh, exactly.
To, you know...
We could establish lickety-split sex education programs for everybody. Everybody.
Yeah.
We could channel it into decent clinics so you don't have to go to a prefab the other side of the hospital car park.
Yeah, that's...
So I'm told.
Yeah.
So I'm told.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's going to work.
It's a good idea.
It'll happen. Thank you, Tracy, for your support. Free call 0500 1053 89. It's Paul in Portsmouth. Paul, you're on Talk Radio. Good afternoon.
Tom, would you get a married man's allowance?
Yes.
You would?
I think so.
Yeah, I reckon that.
I think that my own view is that couples who are actually trying for a baby should be exempt from the sex tax.
Yeah?
Providing it's their first or second child.
Because there's that old saying, isn't it? How do you stop your girlfriend having sex with you? Marry her. So us married men probably get less than a single bloke.
It's a very important point. Young single men have the highest disposable income in the country. That's a well-known fact, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they can afford it.
That's it.
And they should be helping us out with our tax bill, shouldn't they?
Indeed.
Exactly.
Indeed.
Yes. Yes, I think that couples trying for a baby should be exempt if it's their first or second child, but if it's their third child, I think they should pay the full tax. And if they're trying for a fourth child, quite frankly, I don't know about you, but I think they should pay surtax.
Yeah, that'd be like the 40%, isn't it, for the higher earners?
Exactly. Hey, this is going to work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Would you be happy to fill in a form? How many times you've done it in the last month?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah. No worries about that, is there?
No worries about that at all. Paul, thank you for your call.
Cheers, Tom.
Free call 0500 1053 89. Larry calls from London. Larry, you're on Talk Radio. Welcome.
Tommy, is
Larry.
there wine up or what?
No.
No. Are you really serious? Then what do you think about prostitution then?
What do I think about prostitution?
Yeah.
Well, can you sharpen the question a little bit? What do I think about prostitution?
Yeah, it's like saying I have to pay for to have sex.
Yes, you would.
No, that's rubbish. It's just another thing you are saying on the radio, Tommy. You're just trying to wind people up and saying rubbish thing because you're on radio.
Look.
I mean, it's nothing. There's no conversation, Tommy.
Excuse me. Think it through. I mean, do you ever go to concerts?
Do you ever go to concert? No, it's not an amusement.
What isn't?
Look, Tommy, it's how that wind up you are doing today.
Excuse me.
I don't agree. It's like you are winding people up today, Tommy.
I just like to push the barriers of human understanding. Just nudge them a little bit, Larry. And you can come with us. We're not stepping too far out towards the cliff here, only a couple of paces.
Of course, I've been listening to you, Tommy. I enjoy your program, but sometimes you're stepping out of the line. How do you want me to tax my girlfriend?
Yes, you would.
No.
Why not?
No, it's not us. It's because tell me how it's going to do it.
You pay tax.
Look, because you're saying
look,
you have the idea that you don't want to share it.
Listen to me. You pay tax on booze.
Yeah?
You pay tax on cigarettes.
I don't smoke.
Well, if you did?
That's why I won't smoke.
You don't say it's ridiculous? Is it ridiculous to pay tax on booze?
No, it's not. It's not ridiculous to pay tax on bills,
Is it ridiculous to pay tax on contraceptives?
Yeah, but not. Listen, sex is a God-given thing. How do you want...
Can I just ask you a question? Is it ridiculous to pay tax on contraceptives?
Tommy, you're just winding people up. That's what I want to receive.
Larry, let's make it a conversation rather than a series of slogans, albeit the same placard you're holding up, okay? Look, Larry.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you use contraceptives?
Do I use contraceptives, yeah?
You do?
I do.
Then you're already paying a sex tax, man.
Is that what you mean?
Well, you are, aren't you?
I can't go into conversation on this, Tommy.
Look, Larry, is that because you've suddenly realised that your argument doesn't hold a drop of water?
Not really.
Well, you're already paying a sex tax. Why don't you go down to the chemist and say, I'm sorry, I am paying $2.99 for these three, not £3. Hang on, a quick mental calculation. £3.33. I refuse to pay the sex tax.
Oh.
Why don't you do that?
Well, that's your idea, Tommy.
Yes. You've got something to think about, haven't you, Larry?
Well.
Yeah. Great, isn't it, thinking? I love it. They'll be taxing thinking next. He's gone. He went. Whoops. It's a fact. The precedents already exist. Prostitution, in effect, is a tax on sex, but it's collected by private individuals, largely. Although some prostitutes, we read, do pay their income tax, and the government takes the money. And contraceptives are taxed. Prophylactics are taxed. We don't object to that. We pay it just like we pay any other tax. And yet this is an area of human behaviour, human activity, which has delivered the human race just so many problems down the years. We're all clear in our own minds that the time is a-coming when we're going to ask people to explain what they do and what they don't do and why. Because it is our business. But we can make a few bob for the inland revenue along the way, and so we should. We're talking about the sex tax. Your reaction. How will we collect it? Free call 0500 1053 89. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Free call 0500 1053 89.
Thanks to Joyce, who called but didn't have time to come to air, who suggests that places such as the Isle of Man and the Bahamas could twin their allure, not only be tax havens but sex havens. Free call 0500 1053 89. Nick calls from Cardiff. Nick, you're on Talk Radio. Good afternoon.
Hiya, Tom, how you doing? What about gay women and homosexual blokes? Do they come under the same umbrella?
I think they would only need to pay a peppercorn tax. Because their behaviour is less likely to lead to social problems such as overpopulation and single parents.
There you go, Tommy.
Thank you for the question, Nick. It just goes to show that my team have dotted quite a few of the lowercase J's. Nigel calls from Cheltenham. Nigel, you're on Talk Radio. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is a good totalitarian joke, and the beginning of a new philosophical system, isn't it? Anti-utilitarianism, like you tax pleasure. Presumably it's pleasure in most cases. But they're
When you say presumably, does that mean it's not something you would pay a tax for because you're not involved?
No, I didn't mean to imply that.
Right.
I was
what
going
came
to come
across.
to a few practical difficulties.
Excellent.
As an earlier caller said, young people would be obliged to pay the most, which might be difficult because they have less income up to a certain point. And what about, say, masturbation? Would that attract a lower rate?
That would be free.
Oh, masturbation is free?
I would say so, wouldn't you? Doesn't lead to social problems, does it?
That's an interesting speculation, actually, whether it leads to social... On the whole, not.
It was a question, really, rather than a piece of speculation. It was a question to you.
A speculative
Has it, in your experience, led to any problems?
No.
No, fine. Then carry on.
But my experience is limited, of course. It might lead to social problems.
Well, carry on anyway.
Well, actually, I think I've just about made my point.
You've made them well. You've made your points well, and I'm grateful.
But what about, say, 17-year-olds with no disposable income who are having a lot of sex?
Well, they shouldn't be unless they're paying for it. You know the old joke about, you pay for it one way or the other.
Yes, but that would be an injustice then, because they have more need to have it.
There is an assumption...
But you would be giving them less opportunity to have it.
There is an assumption that it's a basic human right. The question has to be asked, is it?
Only in late 20th century Western societies.
It is a human right. The question I'm asking is it a human right?
Shouldn't think so.
No. Does it? Because it affects all of us, doesn't it?
That wouldn't rule it out from being a human right.
Well, I think it does. You see, free speech could be a human right, but not if what you're...
all of us.
But not if what you're having to listen to causes you pain.
Don't quite see the analogy. I don't quite see the analogy there. But
I thought the analogy was so obvious I wouldn't have to explain it to a reasonably intelligent person like yourself.
Well, perhaps I'm interpreting it in a different way to yourself.
Yes, could be.
What I'm saying is that... Oh, never mind. I was just throwing out a few practical objections.
And I'm grateful that you did. Nigel, thank you very much for your call.
It's unethical, that's what I'll say.
It's unethical. It isn't. It's extremely moral. It's extremely moral. Entirely moral. Free call 0500 10 53 89. How so? It will make each and every one of us better citizens one way or another, and better lovers every which way you look at it. Our goal is heaven here on earth. And this one takes us up to the halfway line. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Anne calls from Birmingham.
Hello, Tommy.
Talk Radio, Anne. Good afternoon.
Now, this is going to cause a few little problems. And one thing is, if monks and nuns in theory are not supposed to have sex, I suppose everybody will be joining their ranks.
Well, no, we're not going to make the tax on sex punitive.
No, well, to evade it, I expect a lot of people would become monks or nuns.
Well, you don't have to become a monk or a nun in order to be celibate, of course.
No, yes, and those of us who are celibate, we shouldn't have to pay anything.
Well, you wouldn't, would you see?
And do senior citizens get a discount?
That's a very good question. I must admit I hadn't thought about it. Since sex between senior citizens is unlikely to deliver social problems...
Yes, but even so, that would be unfair, wouldn't it, again, if everybody else has got to pay for it?
It's not... Well, most taxes are unfair, in as much as, to one degree or another, they are an attempt to augment our behaviour. They are only partially an attempt to raise revenue, aren't they, Anne?
Yes.
That's why things that the government would rather we didn't do too much of are taxed quite highly.
Who's going to tax the government? That's an interesting thought.
It's another one, isn't it? We'll do that another day. We're
and
talking
what
about sex
people visiting these shores, like visiting, say, presidents? Would they be taxed?
Well, what happens at the moment if you buy a watch in this country and you live in Wyoming? You claim the tax back at the airport. There. Problem with that?
Yes, possibility. I thought perhaps at first we could have cameras planted in every household, but that wouldn't work. So perhaps they could have a special implant, which is... by law, yes, they have to have.
If you get a sex license, if you pass the test... Okay.
What's the test?
Well, the test would be to show that you understood the process of contraception, the process of conception, and you understood your responsibilities as a lover.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, my tongue's in my cheek choking me.
Well, we should know these things, shouldn't we? Who teaches us them? You take a test, don't you, to drive a car?
Yes,
I think you can do a lot more damage with bad sex than with bad driving.
Oh, yes,
okay.
But then it's more fun. I seem to remember in my misspent youth.
Bad sex?
No, not bad.
Dangerous sex?
naughty sex, then?
Oh, we'd be still doing naughty sex, for goodness sake.
And would prostitutes be able to offer a service to the tax inspector to get off their tax?
No.
Why not?
Well, that would be between them as individuals, wouldn't it?
Well, they'd have to pay double tax, then.
Oh, I don't know about that. As I say, I don't want to make this a punitive thing. I want to gently augment human behaviour, improve the love lives of everyone in Britain, and raise a few bob in inland revenue. Simple as that, that's all.
Possibly,
Don't hurt anybody. Don't put anybody else. And thank you for your call. Free call 0500 10 53 89. We're discussing the sex tax, and we're not the only ones. It's being discussed in Westminster at Scouts Honour. I know that for a fact. We'll talk to Mark in Inverness, and then it's Adrian in Essex. Mark, you're on Talk Radio, sir.
Hi, Tommy.
Mark.
You seem to have the same idea as James Whale about this taxing sex. It seems to you seem to have a few things in common with him. You're both middle-aged, you're overweight, and you seem to have a fair bit of money behind you.
Yes, I'm quite rich, but I'm also svelte.
Stout? Well...
No, svelte.
Svelte?
No, svelte.
Svelte, S-V-E-L-T?
No, S-V-E-L-T-E.
Ah, is it a roof covering, is it?
No, it's something that you aren't. And I'm witty. So, there's two things we haven't got in common.
Well, I do think there seems to be... I mean, James Whale seems to whitter on about you quite a time, doesn't he? You know, he's obviously well over that menopause sort of stage, so... He's obviously a little bit jealous and things. Well, I'm good at money, but I'm obviously bad in bed, so... You know, I'm going to have to tax everybody else like this. Well, I'm been Highland Studs up here, you know, so... Yeah. It's not fair for them.
No.
No?
No. Right, well... It's been vigorous talking to you, Mark.
Do you think so now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
See you, Tommy.
Cheers now. What a nice man. Wouldn't it be great to walk into the pub and he's the only bloke there and think to yourself, oh, I've got Mark to myself for half an hour. Oh, bolt the door. Hans calls from London. Hans, you're on Talk Radio.
We are already collecting this tax in Germany.
Guten Tag.
I come from a small town in the northwest of Germany, which I cannot name for legal reasons.
Okay.
But all the inhabitants of this town, you can tell when you're in the town because all of them seem to be wearing two wristwatches. However, one of the supposed wristwatches is actually a sex pleasure monitor. It picks up the heart rate and matches it with the hormonal level, and we can pinpoint the number of, times of extreme pleasure.
Yes.
And how often. Then at the end of each year, the inhabitants go to the sex clinic, the sex worker records how much they owe, and we have found it works very well because people are eager to pay more tax.
Yes.
Otto would like to pay more tax than Eric because it is a way of showing off.
It's the first tax that people are desperate to pay as much of as possible.
Yes, and if their tax reaches a high level, then we have a bonus incentive. They get a free lottery ticket.
Yes.
And it works very well, and the wristwatch cannot be removed except at the sex clinic by the sex worker because it is a tamper-proof thing, so no one can take it off.
Yeah.
No one can have sex unless it is being recorded. But it is all very private and all very confidential. It works very well. It is an experimental thing right now in our town, but soon it will be throughout Germany and then throughout Europe.
Hans Deutschland über alles. Dankeschön.
Dankeschön.
Dankeschön. What a nice man. And it reminds me that in London there's a work of art. I've driven past it once and seen it. And all it is a digital display of the artist's heartbeat. He's wired himself up so that his pulse is taken permanently, and the number of heartbeats per minute is translated onto this gigantic screen in London. So people drive past and they see that this bloke's heartbeat on a Thursday afternoon, is 72. Fine. Anyway, the letter in a paper about a week ago, which I saw, it said they happened to be driving past this thing at 2:15, right, one Friday morning. In the morning? And his heartbeat was 200 and something. And the letter simply said, I wonder what he's doing. So you see, it can be done. It can be done one way or another. The technology exists easily. Free call 0500 10 53 89. We're discussing the sex tax, which will happen, hopefully sooner rather than later. Lucy calls from Middlesex. You're on Talk Radio, Lucy. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Lucy.
Yes, we must have a sex tax.
Good.
Some people are running around like rabbits. It must be stopped.
Yes.
As well as that, very few people in this country or in any other country can afford to have more than 2 children per family.
That's right.
But they expect people who are out working hard like me to help keep them. And then I get the old acid. Oh, well, when they grow up, they will keep you when you are old. Nonsense.
Rubbish.
Robots and computers will keep me when I am old. That is the future.
Yes.
And I thoroughly object spending my hard-earned money, which I should be using to enjoy myself while I'm working so hard, keeping other people's children.
Yes. Would your sex tax bill be... could you afford it?
Well, I am not ravenous, shall we say. In moderation.
Ravenous, no.
In moderation.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
Everything in moderation, Tommy. That includes 2 children per family.
Oh. I couldn't agree with you more. I could quote one of the Greek philosophers.
Oh, please do.
Oh, God. I can't remember exactly what he said. Lucy, you're a wise woman and a decent person.
Thank you very much, Tommy.
Can I skip the quote? I can't find the book.
Yes, you can, though. I do love it. I do admire your quote.
I've got the train timetable here instead.
You will let us have it in future, I hope.
And from Portsmouth Harbour to Fratton takes exactly 6 minutes if you leave at 18:35 on a Saturday.
Thank you.
Not at all.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Lucy, a decent woman. Free call 0500 1053 89. We've calculated that a simple tax to the tune of £5 per time you make love, and this is going to happen, will deliver to the nation the astonishing sum of minimum £5,000 million per year. This will mean that a huge, healthy bite will be taken off the top end of everybody's income tax bill. VAT could be reduced to 7.5% instead of 17.5%. And people's behaviour will be controlled and improved. It will happen. It's a lot more sensible than the windows tax and the beard tax. Oh, and we've had those. Free call 0500 1053 89. We're going to have to get past the first stage, which is our initial reaction that such an idea is intrusive, and on to the creative constructive phase. How are we going to collect it? Joe calls from Weston-super-Mare. Joe, you're on Talk Radio. Good afternoon.
Hi, Tommy. I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm a gay girl, okay? Would we be charged the same? I mean, I'm not being funny. We don't get recognised by society as a whole.
No.
I mean, we don't get the same taxes on, marriage allowance and things like that.
Well,
so, I mean, how would we be charged?
I would imagine there would just be a nominal tax on gay sex. You would just pay a peppercorn tax.
Because, I mean, nobody recognises it, though, do they? I mean,
No.
It's not recognised. Why should we pay?
You see, I was asked an interesting conundrum the other day by a man who said that if a man and a woman make love, and a man experiences one climax, but during the course of lovemaking, the woman might experience half a dozen.
Yeah.
Does this mean that they have had sex once, half a dozen times, or that the man has had sex once and the woman has had sex half a dozen times? And you know, Joe, it's a heck of an interesting question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not being funny. I'll sex better than anyone, but you would know till you tried it, and obviously you can't try it, but...
I can't try lesbian sex? No.
No, but I mean, it's better than that man and woman, because I've been out with a lot of blokes. I was engaged for a long time before I came out, as you were. But, I was just wondering, that's all.
Well, I would say that since no social problems develop from your romances, Joe, in my own view, you should be exempt from any sex tax.
Yeah, it's the safest sex as far as age is concerned, anyway.
Yes.
With 2 women.
And pretty safe as far as babies go.
No, it's safe as in age as well.
Yes, absolutely.
We're in the lowest group.
Absolutely.
So, I know men are a lot worse, but...
Well, keep up the good work.
Yeah, it's got to be done.
Well, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. It's going to be me.
And it's going to be you. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Bye-bye. Oh, what a nice day. Free call 0500 1053 89. Royston is on the line now from Birmingham. Royston, you're on Talk Radio.
Hello.
Royston.
This tax is absolutely superb. You think about it, if at a given age they implant something into a man's manhood, and he has sex, and he gives a little register, he would also tell his wife whether or not he was misbehaving. If he said 6 times a week, and it was a little bit over that, he'd say, hello, where's the other guy? This is absolutely magnificent. There's nothing in years to come it's going to happen.
A cascade of benefits. We're supposing that a chip could be planted in the epididymis.
In the where?
In the epididymis.
Very nice.
Which is the conduit that leads from the testes to the point of evacuation.
Dick?
Yes.
You think of the electronics in years to come. And all this is going to be available.
Of course it is.
And mind you, I'm laughing the head off because I'm old and plastic now.
You got it for nothing.
Ah, yes, I've had my fun.
That'll teach the youngsters, won't it, Royster? That'll teach the youngsters.
I'll tell you one thing, if you're a young man came in for a 10-minute advice and you little that used to tell me that hey, this would make some people behave themselves.
But this is part of it, Roy.
The deep man who said some time ago, are you going to give up? Tell me, have you ever wound anybody up in your life?
I was
Of course.
Royston.
You take care.
My friend.
Bye-bye.
What a nice man. Free call 0500 1053 89. We're discussing the sex tapes. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Radio. Good afternoon.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.